social democrats, with the prime minister being a social democrat, an elderly lady, as we understand, possibly not in good health, and the left Greens going along with it. The ruling passion of the Social Democrats is to join Europe at all costs. Give up national sovereignty, give up independence, give up dignity, give up your labor force and your economic health. So let's hear some more commentary from Thorarin about this internal political situation. I'd like to ask you in particular about this thing called the citizens movement, civic movement, that then turned into a very interesting little party called The Movement, which may offer a model for us in the U.S., what we should be doing. Let's look at Iceland also as a laboratory for political developments.
Yes, Webster, indeed. For me, the Social Democrats, they are actually the major obstacle in, getting to a new policy in dealing with all this ISAVE, IMF, and the European Union. Because, as you say, the Social Democrats, they just want to join the European Union, no matter what. It seems they are willing to pay any price, and it's like they don't care how much the ISAVE agreement, the higher the figure, the better, actually, for them. So, because they are hoping for kind of like a European bailout if we join, so the Icelandic population would join. It is like they are expecting like the EU to bribe the population, so the Icelandic population would be revealed that the EU is promising so much, and so we could join and escape all our problems. And it's very sad. The citizen movement, or the movement we have been talking to about new ideas, it really is a bit different thing that we would like to go. Exactly, for example, with the IMF. Of course, more people now realize that what the IMF is, and we want to kick it out. And we can see on this ISAVE dispute that these all host together, the IMF, the EU, and ISAVE. So it's like a blackmail. We have to pay ISAVE to get the loans from IMF and also to join the European Union.
That's, of course, unacceptable. We'll be back in a minute.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN, great talk radio starts here.
Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, broadcasting once again today from Reykjavik, Iceland, the epicenter of this battle here in the North Atlantic about whether national independence and economic survival mean anything in today's globalized oligarchical world, or whether the infamous Gordon Brown and his gang can simply tell a country, guess what, you owe us 20 billion pounds, and we'll settle for a fraction of that, when indeed these are private debts. There's no contract the Icelandic government ever signed to bail out British depositors or Dutch depositors, and in any case, Iceland simply cannot pay $6 billion with 5.5% interest. That's banker's arithmetic. The more you pay, the more you owe. You'd be paying forever. You'd destroy your country in the meantime. Let me point to one thing. Iceland, the big natural resource is human capital, mental capital. One of the most literate, highly educated, capable, high-quality workforces anywhere in the world. And if you let the IMF come in, the IMF is now busy dictating how you take down your health system, how you take down your education system. Gosh, it sounds like our free enterprise Republicans back in the United States. It's the same thing. What some people call the Austrian school freedom agenda is known in the world as IMF shock therapy, and it destroys countries. It destroys democratic systems. It weakens the institutions to the point where demagogues can have a field day. Now, let me just point out, there were big demonstrations here in November, December, and January, and that was under the old government by the so-called Independence Party. The Independence Party turned out to be the party of subservience to London and the IMF and the European Union. There was then generally a feeling that old Independence Party right-wing government had to go. That was the Prime Minister Harde, Harde. Out of this mass strike, this continuous process, similar to East Germany in some ways, right? The Leipzig demonstrations, something like that happening here in Iceland. Out of that came a movement called the Civic Movement, with a fairly generic pro-democracy program, not much in the way of economic program. That has now split, and out of that have come 3 members out of, 65 or so, 63 in the parliament. So it's about, 1/20th of the parliament are now the movement. So these are, I think, some exceptional people, 7% of the parliament, and they're interested in an anti-IMF, anti-European Union, don't pay the debt line. At the same time this week, another interesting development, the health minister has resigned from the Social Democratic and left-green cabinet here in Reykjavik. He's the health minister, in many ways the most radical, possibly the most honest, the most interesting in many ways of the politicians, and it is thought by political observers here in Reykjavik that the resignation of the health minister may be the prelude to the fall of the current government, which seems to be drifting. The prime minister, the elderly lady, not very capable. The foreign minister not doing very much to find new friends when this country has been defended, has been betrayed by its old friend, and the finance minister somehow going along with the IMF and the European Union. But I wonder if we can get some more commentary from Thorarinn Einarsson on how this is likely to play out. Are early elections again in the cards, right? One vote already earlier this year produced the current government. Maybe another election might be coming.
Yeah, I'll just take your point from the health minister that he has been the biggest opposer of ISAF within government and also even the parliament. The thing is that they had to make a bill in the parliament to apply for to have a state guarantee on the loans, the contract of the ISAF that the UK and Netherlands were forcing us to accept. Actually, our Minister of Finance, he went there and he signed it. There is no questions and no real negotiations. We just accept what they say, and of course the Parliament has to approve this guarantee that they need, that actually the Icelandic state will pay this, because our insurance fund is almost empty and cannot pay it. That's why they wanted this ISAF agreement, to make sure that the Icelandic state would actually pay the 6 billion or so. But the thing is that there was a lot of skepticism. If Iceland could actually pay this amount, even if it was estimated that the Landsbanki asset should eventually cover, or was estimated at the time having 75% of this total debt, but it could not be sold right away and paid. But they wanted to sell it in a few years to maximize the value of the assets. But of course, we don't know who these assets are, if they are real, and about the derivatives, if they are, if they are worth something. Really, we don't know what these assets are made of. It could be nothing, could be a bit more, probably not. And anyway, we're expecting the economy to go further down in the world, and so these assets would probably follow, and minimizing the value further. But so it was a lot of skepticism anyway, and many parliament members could not accept this state guarantee, and they were actually opposing. And suddenly the government was desperate that the parliament would not. There was not a majority to approve, and therefore not approve the ISAF contracts or the loans as a whole. So eventually, the government was needed to add some conditions to the state guarantee, even if the contract said that there would be no conditions. So that included, in the end, that the payments of the Icelandic state would only be within the range of 6% of GDP growth. So it would never exceed that, and that would be acceptable. And also, before I should mention that this payment would take place in 8 years, and after 7 years. So we get this was paid in 7 years, and then we start to pay in 8 years. But they added still the condition that the state guarantee would end in 2024, so making it a very limited